parent seminars for the year, and I'm really excited about getting started with this one. But before we do, just going to make just a couple announcements. First of all, I'm Dina Brias, Director of the Gifted for PPE, in case I haven't seen you before. Here we have tonight is going to be presenting Karen Brown. She's our Gifted Program Mentor. And introduce you to Deanna Shargarian. She is our testing coordinator, data technician, and we rely on her skills heavily. So, a couple things. First of all, have you all gotten the Gifted Parent newsletter? Raise your hand if you've seen it. Okay. If you have not seen it, I want you to ask your teachers for it, okay? Because it's supposed to get distributed through the gifted specialists at your schools and then through the cluster teachers. So ask for it, because we do these quarterly, and a lot of events going on. We want to advertise some of the things that we're doing in our district, programming options. We always have feature articles. So take a look at that. Look for it. It comes out quarterly. Our next parent night is with Dr. Paul Belgian from Belgian Psychological Services. He's going to be looking at basically a neuropsychological perspective for giftedness, and it's really quite interesting. So I hope you can join us for that as well. And that's going to be October 16th, and then December 4th, we are doing one on mindfulness with another local psychologist who is fantastic. She's very nurturing, and she works with our students and trains our teachers. So keep an eye out for those. If you are interested in the next year or two, if you have a middle school, a child that's going to be entering middle school, we have our Digital Learning Center Parent Night, and that is next week, October 3rd, and then the day after is the week the kids can tour the Digital Learning Center. So if you're interested in that, these are all advertised on our website. Another little bit of news, our self-contained application process is for next year, believe it or not, is already starting. So that opens up October 1st for the elementary grades, October 1st for your home school, if you reside in the school site that you want to go to, if you reside in that. And then it opens up November 1st for everybody else. The kinder self-contained apps start January 7th, and the preschool in February 4th. Speaking of middle school options, we just recently did an overview of all the different services that we offer at our different middle schools. So you can take a look at that. That's a PDF online, and then if you could seek more information out from that specific school if you're interested. And I think that's it. I'm going to introduce you to Marisha Berry. Marisha is the UBC is our Paradise Valley United Parent Council, and Marisha volunteers to be the gifted liaison to that group. So she and I work closely to plan events such as this, and she'll just tell you what UBC is.
Hello, I just want to first make sure everybody signed in, so if you haven't on the way out, please do. And we can stay in touch with you and let you know what's going on. Also want to let you know the United Parent Council the general meeting meets once a month on Wednesday. The next one is October 16th. The way it works is usually we have members of the cabinet, the superintendent and his assistant superintendents, and all the cabinet are usually here at the beginning for the first from 8:45 to 9. And so you can meet those folks here during that meeting every month. And then we begin our business portion of the meeting that goes from usually 9:15 to 10:15. And then at 10:15 every single month we have a program. And this coming month on October 16th, the program is going to be Leah Canigli. She is the president of the Paradise Valley Education Association, which is a local affiliate of the Arizona Education Association. So she's going to come talk about her role as president and also talk about the organization and what they're up to. So every month we have a program, and that is the program for this month. The other thing I wanted to know is how did you guys hear, most of you, how many of you heard about this program through email from someone at your school? Good, great, it's working. Okay. Tina, thank you. We also have a Facebook page, the United Parent Council, so we promote and we'll list all of our programs. We also have a committee that is the special ed committee as well. So you can find things about special ed, and special ed also encompasses uniquely gifted, which are gifted children that have learning disabilities. So make sure you check out the United Parent Council Facebook. We have Twitter. We have thanks to Dwayne.
Speaking of which, they live stream these presentations, so you can look at past ones from last year and future ones that you might be interested in, but not able to.
Right.
So.
One last thing, I just wanted to break down for your benefit, for Karen's benefit, how many of you have children in elementary school? How many middle school kids? And how many high school? Great, okay, that's what we would kind of guess then. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy. Karen Tracy, one of our favorites.
I'm really pleased to introduce to you Karen Brown. Not only is she our gifted program mentor, but she's my right hand and sometimes both hands. But I also want to let you know that the National Association for Gifted Children, NAGC, just awarded Karen the Gifted Specialist of the Year for the entire country. It's an incredible honor. She's going to be awarded that at the convention this year in Minneapolis. So with that said, I'd just like to ask you if you have questions, please hold them to the end because we will have time to answer some questions from you, if it's a general sense. If you have a question about that really pertains to your child, just give my office a call, and Deanna, Karen, myself, or we have a couple other folks in my office. My assistant, Phaedra, might be the one that answers. But we're happy to take your calls and questions out of personal. We just don't want to talk about it as a group. So.
All right. I hate microphones. I have a teacher voice. It carries. People can hear me. Children never have trouble hearing me. So as long as you can hear me, I'm probably not going to use a microphone because I hate them. My name is Karen Brown. I come at gifted education from three paths. I grew up with a sibling who was gifted. I am not gifted. I was very clear about that growing up. Yes, I am not. I then got married, had children. I have 5 children. 3 of my children are identified as gifted learners. 1 is profoundly gifted. I have told people for years if he had been born first, he would be an only child. He would never have done that again. Oh my goodness. And obviously I have been working in the field of gifted education for a number of years. This is my 37th year in education, and more than half of those years have been spent working with gifted kids. They are a unique group, and I love them. But unfortunately for many of them, they have some challenges that really impact the way they embrace life. And life isn't always easy as a gifted kid. So tonight we're going to talk about some of the challenges that they face. And some of the things that we're going to talk about are these: perfectionism, creative thinking. I can remember telling my gifted kids, I love your out-of-the-box thinking. But can you see the box from where I am? Because I'm in the box. They would come up with these amazing things, and I'm thinking, okay, do you know the question I asked? Because I'm not getting a connect. And they'd go, well, Mrs. Brown, and they would take me on this beautiful journey, and I'm like, oh my gosh, never thought of it that way. Okay, you're fine. We're going to talk about intensity. Nothing rolls off the back of a gifted kid. It's about the color of my pencil. I need a blue pencil, and this pencil's yellow. It's about the fact that, Mrs. Brown, I need to call my mom because the socks I have on, they have a seam in them, and they're really bothering me, and so I need to call my mom. Now, we look at that and we laugh because we think, honey, get over it. I can't get over it. If I could, I would. I can't. And so it's that understanding of who I am. It makes me me. And I don't want to change them, but I want to help them navigate a world that isn't always set up for gifted kids. We're also going to talk about the fact that these are children who learn at a breakneck pace. I tell the teachers in our district, if you are a day ahead of them, you are golden. That is wonderful. Because there are times where we plan the most wonderful lessons, and we are sure, and we walk in and they blow it out of the water. And the teacher stands there thinking, okay, that was 6 hours of work, and it's gone. Now what do I do? Now what do I do? It's who they are. We're also going to talk about some sensitivities. These are kids who worry. They worry about the world. They worry about that group of people that were just hit with a hurricane. And we say things to them like, honey, it's out of your control. There are organizations that are going to take care of that. But mom, what about, they worry. They care. And they worry about things that other kids don't even notice, don't even think about. They are diverse. We talk about the characteristics of a gifted kid. They don't all meet those characteristics. They're as different as every other group of children. So yes, do they have some commonalities? They do, but they also have a lot of differences. So let's talk first about perfectionism. These are kids who sometimes set very unrealistic goals for themselves. They expect perfection. They demand perfection of themselves. Well, here's the problem. Nobody is perfect. Nobody. And no matter how hard you try, you cannot be perfect. But I need to be. And we have kids who fall apart because on a pretest, they missed 4. Honey, this is material you're not supposed to know. And when I say things like, you're not supposed to know this, they look at me like, but I am. But I am. And they stress. I want you to think for a minute about how it feels to be the child who has always known the answer. You don't know how you know the answer, you just always have. You were in kindergarten, you always knew the answer, your hand was always the first one up. You always knew the answer. And then you moved into first grade, and you still always knew the answer. Then you got into second, or third, or fourth, or fifth. Or you got to middle school, and you didn't know the answer. The teacher asked a question, and the answer didn't instantly pop into your head. Okay, but I'm the kid who knows the answer. And I don't. But I'm the kid who knows the answer. But I don't. That's when fear sets in. And fear is debilitating. I don't know how to handle not knowing the answer. I don't know what to do because I'm the kid who knows the answer. And sadly, many of our gifted children have identified themselves with that scenario. Well, here's the problem. You can't always be the kid who knows the answer. You're going to be in situations where you don't know what to do. And you have to learn how to handle those situations. But I want you to think about that for a minute. How many of you enjoy, now be honest, you like struggling? Raise your hands. Gee, I see so many people. We just love to. No, there's a reason we call it a comfort zone. It's comfortable. But we don't learn in comfortable. We learn in struggle. And so one of the things we're going to talk about tonight is that concept of productive struggle. That state of disequilibrium where I'm not sure whether I'm going to be sick or not because the butterflies are fluttering in our stomach and we're panicking. That is intense for a gifted child because I'm supposed to know the answer. I tell people the world's worst thing you could say to a gifted child is, what do you think you don't know? You're gifted. Gifted is not all knowing. But we have many gifted learners who feel that way. They feel that it is. They are super critical of themselves and of others. And some of them are so worried about tomorrow they can't enjoy today. So one of the things we have to do is help them manage that anxiety and help them manage that perfectionism. And for some of you, you have a child who is so perfectionistic that they would rather not try than be wrong. Anybody got a child like that? Yeah. I have one. Because the fear of being wrong is worse than not attempting. I'm not going to make a mistake because if I don't try, I can't make a mistake. How do I get a child beyond that? And that's one of the things we're going to talk about. One of the things we have to do is we have to teach them that it is not about the product, it is about the process. So instead of praising the product, we have to praise the effort that went into achieving that product. We have to praise the process. Well, that kind of is a paradigm shift for us because for many of us, we grew up praising the product. We did something and our mom said, "Great job on your essay." It was the product that got us the attention. Well, for our gifted children, we have to shift that. I love the way you took extra time and put the effort into doing this. That's what I want to praise. I also have to create that failure-safe zone. Your teachers are working to create that failure-safe zone in your room. I tell kids, if I don't teach you anything else, I will teach you how to fall flat on your face, pick yourself up, and realize the sun's going to shine tomorrow. You're all right. What is the absolute worst thing that will happen if you fail this? I could get a bad grade. Okay, and the worst thing that happens if you get a bad grade? My dad will be disappointed in me. Okay, and the worst thing that happens? I said, guys, you live, you survive, you move forward, you have to learn to fail. Because I guarantee you, there isn't a person in this room who has not failed at something. We fail at things all the time. It's how I deal with failure that determines whether I'm going to be successful. And so we talk with kids about the fact that fail is simply my first attempt in learning. It's my first attempt. It's okay. I failed. Mrs. Brown, I got a D. Oh, so what did you learn from that? My study method doesn't work. Exactly. So what do we need to do? We need to rethink my study method. Here we go. Let's try again. Pick up. I tell kids, as long as you fail forward, you're fine. Just fail forward. Because you know what? Going through life, you're going to fail. You're going to. It's reality. We also have to prep kids for making mistakes. We prep them for that team tryout where they might not make the team. What are you going to do? What are you going to do if you take this test and you don't get 100%? What are you going to do if you work in this group project and it doesn't go the way you want it to go? And we role play. We think about, what are you going to do? And we talk about it. We talk about the fact that there's a chance that it's not going to go the way you want it to go. So what's your plan? What are you going to do if it doesn't go the way you want it to go? What's your plan? What do you do if they don't have a plan? You build a plan with them because they have to have a plan in place. All of us have failed. It's part of life. And we all moved beyond it. But we have children who don't think there is a beyond failure. We have to help them understand that there is. There is a beyond failure. So I talk with young learners about learning butterflies. It's about that fluttering in your stomach when The teacher's asking a question, and you don't know the answer, and you know you should know the answer, and other kids' hands are going up, and you don't know the answer. Okay, what are you going to do? I said, you need to hold on to those butterflies because those are learning butterflies. Don't lose those. I was out of school beginning of last year, and I had talked with a group of children the year before about learning butterflies. And I was walking down the hall, and a little girl walked past me, and she grabbed my arm, and she went, and I'll be honest with you, I had no clue what she was talking about. But in circling around, I swung through her classroom, and in that process, as I walked by, she grabbed my arm again, and I leaned down, and she said, it's only 10 o'clock, and I have had learning butterflies 4 times. She was thrilled. I'm like, I'm so proud of you. That's wonderful. Learning butterflies are not a bad thing. But if we don't identify that feeling for a child, it's a scary feeling. So we need to identify it. Give it a name. With those students that are 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 1st grade, who don't want to attempt things because they don't want to be wrong. If I don't write an answer down, can't be wrong, I need to teach that child to work in draft. And I have students who actually had little draft stamps made up so they could stamp their paper. This is a draft. Okay, because think about a draft. What's a draft? It's in progress. I'm working on this. There's safety in draft because draft is a process that I'm going through. I'm safe as long as I'm working in draft. You know what? If that's what it takes to get that kid to put an answer on the page, he can work in draft forever. I'm okay with that because it gets him over that hump of, I'm afraid, what if the answer's wrong? It's okay because it's just a draft. It doesn't matter that the answer's wrong because I can always fix it. I can always change it. We talk about that intensity, that lock that they get when they lock into something and the world goes on without them. They are so locked into what they're doing. And it's great. We love that passion, except sometimes that lock gets in their way because they can't see that there is a world out there that is not all consumed with what they're working on. They do get lost in their own world. These are kids who, they're the epitome of a multitasker. They are listening to the teacher, they are reading a book in their desk, and they're making a doodle off to the side. And as a teacher, we think, oh, I got it. And we call on them, and they verbatim give back what we just said. Shoot. Now, we know that researchers tell us there's no such thing as multitasking. It is simply the ability of the brain to shift between tasks. Well, the problem with a gifted brain is it makes a really fast shift. It shifts back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And while I have to accept that of my learner, one of the things that I want to make them aware of is, gang, you're not really multitasking. And there is a chance that in this process of shifting back and forth, because you've got 4 things going at once, you're going to miss something. So be careful what you choose to multitask. It is not unusual for a gifted child to be reading 4 books at the same time. I can't read 4 books at the same time because I can't keep track of what's happening in them. But they can tell me all the stories that they're reading. It's the ability of their brain to track multiple things at the same time. Now that intensity can be frustrating for us at times because they don't miss things. Ever. And they notice everything. Always. And that's great, except that when you couple that with that sensitivity, sometimes that gets in their way. They read us. They read your emotions. They sense your frustration, although you are trying really hard to not let them see it. Now, are all gifted kids good at reading emotions? No. because all people aren't good at reading emotions. But many gifted learners are very good at reading you. And they are sensitive to the needs of other people. And they worry about things that the typical learner does not worry about. I have parents who no longer let their children watch the news because they're worried about everything that's happening in our world. They're worried about the hurricane, and they're worried about this election, and what if this happens. And you can't live in a what-if world. But helping a gifted learner understand that there are things within your control and there are things that are out of your control. And so having those conversations about, all right, I hear your anxiety and I hear your worry. We have to validate that because it's real. And we can say, oh, come on, he's 10. It's real. That worry and that concern is real. We have to validate that. But we also have to help them understand that, okay, I hear it. I get that you are really worried about this, but now let's put it in perspective. Is this something within your control? No. So what do you need to do? I need to let the adults deal with it. Exactly. You need to let the adults deal with it. And I'm sorry that the adults may not deal with it in a way that you want them to. They don't always deal with it in a way I want them to. But it's not in your control. Helping a gifted learner understand that helps control my anxiety level. We talk about anxiety a lot with gifted kids, primarily because there are very few gifted children who do not experience anxiety. These are kids who like control. They like to control their environment. Well, I like to control my environment too. Do you like to control your environment? How many of you are successful at controlling your environment? Yeah, you're probably as successful as I am. Some days, I have pretty good control. Other days, not so much. Depends. Well, helping them understand that there are things in our world we can control, but as a 10-year-old, there are also things in your world that you can't control. So how do I deal with something that is out of my control? First thing I do is I identify. I identify this item is something I want to control, but I can't. And then I make a plan. So what am I going to do when I get that feeling that I need to control? What am I going to do? And I have to talk myself through those steps. It's not easy. But they need to hear from you that you recognize that they are feeling out of control. Because none of us like that feeling. I don't like feeling out of control. But it's part of life. I don't get to control everything. I don't get to control how you react to me. I get to control me, but I don't get to control you. That's hard for a gifted kid. But Mrs. Brown, he didn't react the way I... Okay, I hear that. Who do you get to control? Me. You can control how you react to him. You cannot control how he reacts to you. And you're going to be saying that over and over and over again. And we think about the fact that, okay, but these children learn quickly. So why am I saying it over and over and over again? Because it's also part of who I am. And it's what I'm struggling with. These are kids that we have to teach self-regulation to. They run hot. They go from 0 to 120 like that. They are the child that is fine 1 minute and they are bawling the next. What is wrong? Why are you crying? I don't know. I don't know. Okay. I had a principal come into my classroom, and he was a new principal, and I'd been at the school for a couple of years, and he said, Karen, I hesitate to say this, but Well, I've noticed something. When I come in your room, someone's always crying. Yeah, I've noticed that too. You're right. I call those intensity tears. Those are tears that come and they flood. And it's not a tear that a child can control. It's an intensity tear. I need to give those names. I need to say to a child, are you okay? Yes. That's just intensity tears. They flood and they can't stop them and they don't know why they're crying. And I still remember one little boy going, I'm good. His tears are running down his face. And I'm like, okay. And I walk away. Knowing that he's all right, and the more I talk to him, the worse I'm making it. So he just needs me to walk away. Recognize that that's part of who I am. Put a name to those tears. Because you see, if you give them a name, you give me the right to acknowledge that they are what they are, and I'm okay. I'm okay. So, yes.
Mentioned that's exactly what Laura Wingers is really
Oh,
talking
yes.
about with the mindfulness, that self-regulation, give practical tools for parents to guide them.
Self-regulation is tough. Laura Wingers will be doing a presentation in December, correct? Okay. On mindfulness, which is self-regulation. It's recognizing where I am and how to help young children and older children deal with that. We've talked about that rapid learning rate, that memory that never stops. But Mom, you said, 6 months ago, things have changed. But you said they remember everything. Now that can be good. It can also be bad. So be careful what you say, because it'll come back to bite you. They enjoy playing challenge games. They love to learn. But sadly, some of them don't love school. And when they're not in a learning environment that challenges them and pushes them, school isn't a place that they like. Because I like to learn, I need school to be a place that I learn, which is one of the reasons why we have so many different programs in Paradise Valley, because they don't all need the same thing. They need different things. So we have to make sure that we are providing the pieces that they need, all the pieces that they need. This is my favorite cartoon of productive struggle. I'm going to read it to you because I don't know that everybody can see it. He says, what are you doing? Homework? Well, I wasn't sure I understood the chapter, so I reviewed my notes from the last chapter, and now I'm rereading this. You do all that work? Well, now I understand it. I used to think you were smart. Productive struggle is an important part of the learning process. Without productive struggle, we do not learn. We have to struggle. It's how we learn. Now, I'll be honest with you, I had 5 kids. Did I enjoy productive struggle in the evening? No, did not. Just want you to sit down, get your homework done, and stop. But productive struggle is part of the learning process. I have to struggle. I have to bump my head against things and not have the answer come to me like that. I have to learn perseverance. Well, how do you learn to persevere? By having to persevere. You don't learn perseverance if you don't ever have to. And no, we don't enjoy persevering. It's like we don't enjoy struggle. But it's part of the process. But there's 2 kinds that we need to be sure we're understanding. There's that productive struggle that leads us to understanding. And then there's that destructive struggle where we fall off the edge. Your child's teacher works really hard to walk that tightrope with them, because it is a tightrope, to keep them from falling off the edge, but I have to have my toes right on the edge or I'm not in productive struggle. It's a process. So when your child comes home and they say things like, My teacher will not help me. Really? Because that's why we got into education as teachers, so we could not help children. So I say to them, okay, so your teacher won't help you. What did you do? Well, I went up to her and I said I didn't know the answer. And she asked me a question. So what did you do? Well, I sat back down and I don't understand and I don't have the answer. And she told me to try it again and she won't help me. Did you try it again? No. Well, how are you supposed to figure it out if you don't try it again? Well, she's supposed to help me. No, that's not what she's supposed to do. She's supposed to ask you questions to guide you to figure out the answer yourself. If she hands you the answer, you're not going to remember it. If you have to figure it out, you will remember it. I want you to think about something that you learned to do and you had to struggle to learn it. For me, I still remember learning to drive a standard transmission. I learned to drive a standard transmission in upstate New York. Have you ever been in upstate New York? It's all hills, everywhere. What happens with a standard transmission when you're on a hill? Yeah, you roll backwards. I could drive all over my little town and never stop on a hill. Now, I might need to go 10 miles out of my way, but I could still do it. And driving that standard transmission was a struggle. It was a struggle. And I had to persevere through it because if I didn't get a car to drive. Understand, your children have to persevere. And they don't like it any more than you do. I remember sitting in that car crying. So angry at my father because he could have given me the car that wasn't like this. But that's the way it is. So understand, perseverance is hard, but productive struggle is necessary. It's necessary. So when your child comes home and says, my teacher won't help me, really? Stop and think. Because I know for me as a parent, my first reaction was, oh! And then I went, okay, wait a minute, that doesn't even make sense to me. Think about this. No, my teacher won't give me the answer, and that's what I want. I don't want to struggle. Okay, I get that you don't want to struggle, but struggling is part of life. We have to learn how to struggle. Growth mindset is something that you're hearing in all of the classrooms throughout this district. And it's a wonderful thing. And it's the power of the word yet. I don't know how to do this yet. You're right, you don't. Yet. There's power in that little word because learning is messy. And we have to learn to normalize mistakes. Because right now, children view mistakes as negatives instead of opportunities for learning. And so you've got teachers who are saying things to them like, I see 2 opportunities for brain growth. Are you willing to take them? And the child sits there and thinks, am I? Yeah. Well, what do you see? All right, here and here. And I was in a classroom and I said to a teacher, I heard you say, I see 2 opportunities for brain growth. Are you willing to take them? What do you do if the kid says no? And she said, I walk away. And I say, oh, I'm sorry. Maybe next time. You're not ready yet. I said, what happened? She said, they follow me. Because they're awed at the fact that you're going to let me. Yeah, I am. Because you have to be ready to take the opportunity. Mistakes are opportunities to learn. You don't know how to do it yet. But you will. You will. You just don't know how to do it yet. And we're not always comfortable with that. particularly gifted kids, because their expectation is, I know how to do everything, because remember, I am perfect. And their expectation is so high that it's not reasonable. It's not reasonable. And so we have to revisit that with them over and over and over again. You're right, you don't know how to do it yet. There are things that mom does not know how to do yet. There are things that your dad does not know how to do yet. Because believe it or not, your kids think you know how to do everything. You know how to do it all. They need to understand that there are things you don't know how to do yet. Because in knowing that, there's that feeling of, oh, okay, all right. You are never going to reach the point where you know how to do everything. It's not going to happen. You don't know how to do it yet. So I ask kids to name their mindset. Because we have two mindsets that we function under. We function with a fixed mindset and we function with a growth mindset. And when we're in a fixed mindset, we're pretty locked. A fixed mindset is the mindset that tells me I can't, it's too hard, it locks us in. A growth mindset allows us to function under that power of yet. Now I'll be honest with you, we don't live in a growth mindset. We float back and forth between the two. We're not in a growth mindset all the time. But the key is to be able to recognize when I'm in a fixed mindset and to get out of it. Because if you can't recognize that you're in a fixed mindset, your chances of getting out of it are pretty slim. So I have kids name their mindset. Who's talking to you right now? Who's on your shoulder? Which mindset are you listening to? I'm listening to Harvey. Okay, well, Harvey is your fixed mindset. And Harvey needs to stop talking to you. So tell Harvey to be quiet. I was in a classroom, and the teacher's been doing growth mindset all year. And she said, okay, we're going to do an activity. I want you to go stand behind this little boy. Okay, I'm standing behind him. He gets started on the activity, and I notice that he's doing this. He's talking to his mindsets. Okay, whatever it takes. But the other thing I heard in a 7th grade classroom was a group of students who were working on a project, and one student looked over at another student and he said, "You're sounding mighty fixed." And the student he was talking to said, "You're right. Okay, let me rephrase that." And he worked his way back through it. The key is not to live in a growth mindset. The key is to know how to get into the growth mindset when you need it. And recognize when you are locked. That's the key we have to work with kids on. How do I know when I'm in a fixed mindset? Well, if your mindset is telling you that you can't do something, I guarantee you're in a fixed mindset. Because a growth mindset says, I can improve at anything. Notice I said I can improve at anything. It did not say I can do anything. And we need to be careful about that. Because when we say things like, you can do anything, do we really mean that? I want to be a professional basketball player. It's not going to happen. If you've seen me do a layup, you know it's not going to happen. I can't do anything, but I can improve at anything. I can get better at it. That's my growth mindset. And that's the mindset that I need to work my kids through. And we need to talk at home about their growth mindset. Who's talking to you? Who are you listening to? I have one little girl who calls her fixed mindset Negative Annie. Okay, Negative Annie's talking to me right now. So we'll tell Negative Annie to be quiet because you need to move forward. Social immaturity. Now, I'm not saying that your children are immature, but I am saying that at times, gifted children struggle with social maturity. And it's that idea of volume control. They're either really loud or they're really soft. And there's no in between. They struggle with that concept of personal space. Honey, you're standing on my toes. Back up. We talked at my house about the hula hoop. Everybody gets a hula hoop. You stay in your hula hoop and I'll stay in my hula hoop. And if you want permission to come in my hula hoop, you need to ask. Understanding that personal space can be challenging for some gifted kids. Knowing how to carry on a conversation. Now we think, well, how hard's a conversation? It's hard when you're a gifted kid because I want to talk about this. I don't really care what you want to talk about. I want to talk about this. You've all had that conversation with your child. It's not really a conversation, it's a dialogue. Okay? It's actually a monologue. So we need to practice conversation. You get to talk about your topic only after you have asked me a question about my topic. I had one little boy look at me and say, well, then I'm going to have to listen. Yes, you are. You're going to have to listen to what I'm saying so you can ask a question. All right, go ahead. There's an art to conversation. But sometimes our kids don't get that. So we got to practice it. We have to practice that give and take. And believe it or not, you have to listen to what the other person is saying. Because you know what's running through their mind the whole time? I wish you'd be quiet, I wish you'd be quiet, I wish you'd be quiet, because I have something I want to say. I have to teach that art of conversation. Sometimes gifted kids struggle in group activities because I need to be the best. And Mr. Brown, he struck out. Well, yeah, it kind of happens. So sometimes we have to provide them with that opportunity to work on their personal best. So activities like tennis, swimming, things where it's an individual and the only thing I can control is me. All I can control is me. And then we work toward that group activity. Because for some of them, that group activity is a nightmare. Because you see, they know what all those other people are supposed to be doing. And they're not doing it. And that's why we're losing. Because they're not doing what they're supposed to do. I'm like, okay, but you know what? Who are you able to control? You. You don't get to control everybody else. You get to control you. Sometimes we have to take a step back from those sports activities and let them do something that is only dependent on them. Only dependent on them. These kids are different. And I have parents who say things like, my child doesn't know they're gifted. Want to bet? They may not know the word, but your child knows they're different. They've known from day one that they thought differently, that they perceived things differently than other kids. So if you think they don't know they're different, you're wrong. They do know. What they don't know is it okay? Is it okay to be different? Yeah. Because you are good enough just like you are. I don't need you to be perfect. I don't need you to change. I need you to be you. Because you're fine. You're great. You're awesome. Just like you are. And a lot of our gifted kids don't feel that way. They are trying so hard to be perfect. I don't need you to be perfect. I need you to be you. That's who I need you to be. They need to learn how to evaluate things in a relative success. What does it mean for you? What does it mean for you? Had a parent who attended a workshop that I did, and I talked about the issue that we run into sometimes where the child studied for the vocabulary test, we worked with them on the words, they went into school, they took the vocabulary test, they missed 2 out of the 20. And when they came home and they showed us the test, unfortunately what came out of our mouths was, honey, we studied these, what happened? Oops. We forgot about the 18 that they got right, and we focused on the 2 that they got wrong. Well, the mom that was in my workshop said, I sat there thinking, I don't do that. I can't imagine a parent doing that. How could you do something like that? She said, in a week and a half passed, and my husband was out of town. My daughter came home with a paper that she had done well on. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't 100%, but it was a good, solid paper. And I was really proud of her, and I said, why don't you put it on the refrigerator so that when Daddy comes home tomorrow, you can show him? And she said, my daughter took it, and she crumpled it up, and she threw it away. And I looked at her, and I said, why did you throw that away? And she said, my child looked at me and said, Mommy, perfect papers go on the refrigerator. That was not a perfect paper. And she said, I stood there thinking, I taught her that. Because without meaning to, that's what I have valued. That's what I put on the refrigerator. Value the process, not the product. So put that paper that's got all kinds of work on it that maybe isn't perfect, but shows their learning, put that one on the refrigerator, because that's the one they need attention for. So we have to understand and help them understand the difference between better at something and better than someone. And that can be difficult for some kids. I can be better at math than you are. Doesn't mean I am better than you are. Because I don't need to be better than somebody else. I can be better at it, but not better than. When we talk about that, for some gifted kids, they have too many options. They got too many things going on. Options are great, but options can be exhausting. And being gifted is exhausting. Because your child is gifted 24/7. They went to bed gifted, they were gifted all night long, and they woke up gifted in the morning. And I know this because my child stood at the foot of my bed staring at me. And it was 2 a.m. And I woke up and said, what's wrong? Are you sick? No. What's wrong? Mommy, it won't turn off. Now, I admit, there was a moment where all I thought was, oh my God, what did he turn on? Because he was that kind of child. And then I realized that wasn't what he was talking about. He said, Mommy, I'm tired. I just want to go to sleep. It won't turn off. How do you turn it off? Honey, you can't turn off your brain. You can't? No. But Mommy, I got to get some sleep. I'm tired. Okay. Let's see what we can do. And so I told him, I said, we got a little notebook out, and I said, tell me what you're thinking about. And we wrote down the things he was thinking about. And I said, all right, they're safe. They're right here. You don't have to think about them anymore because they're going to be here in the morning, and you can grab them in the morning and go. Now go to sleep. Okay. Wait, one more thing. Okay, one more thing. Being gifted is exhausting. It's exhausting. These are kids who have to overcome barriers of other people's expectations. And the expectations they feel come from us, even though we don't mean to, and from grandma and grandpa, and from aunts and uncles, and from neighbors who expect me to be perfect. You expect me to not make mistakes. You expect me, I have little ones who talk, and if you listen to them, they sound like an 80-year-old man. They sound like that high school student. And then when they're in a restaurant and they pitch a fit, and we say, stop it! You need to act your, oh wait, your age. And this is your age. You sound older, but you're not. I'm 4. I'm 6. I'm 8. And sometimes without meaning to, we try to reason with them like we would reason with a teenager. Because they sound like a teenager. But I'm not a teenager. I'm 8. And I can't do what you're asking me to do. Please remember, there's a difference between, we call it an asynchrony. There's a difference between my developmental level and my intellectual level. And sometimes that gap is huge. Sometimes it's small. Dr. Webb used to say it would be so much nicer if they could just light up on their forehead so that I knew I'm talking to the 2-year-old, I'm talking to the 8-year-old, I'm talking to the high school person. It doesn't light up. No. But they are 3 people in one body. And I need to remember that. It is what it is. They need to learn to self-advocate. You can't be with them forever. They've got to learn to stand up for themselves. And I heard a phrase the other day and I thought, oh, I don't think I've ever heard that. I heard someone talking about a lawnmower parent. And I said, a lawnmower parent? What is that? And she said, that's a parent that mows down all the problems their child will have to face so that they don't have to deal with it. And I thought, oh my gosh. How is your child ever going to learn if you mow down all the problems? I have to face problems. I have to struggle. And I've never heard that phrase before. So, transitions. Transitions involve change. We don't like change. Think about that. Do you like change? We think about things like, okay, we need to change this. Okay, you do it first and I'll follow you. I don't want to change. Change makes me nervous. Well, our lives are full of transitions. And for gifted kids, they start worrying about what's going to happen next year in January. And they still have January, February, March, April, May, and the whole summer. But they're already worrying about what's going to happen next year. Transitions are hard. Validate that feeling for your child. Because one of our tendencies is to say things like, would you stop worrying about that? It's not a big deal. But it is a big deal to me. Your perception is that it's not a big deal, but my perception is that it is a big deal. Validate my perception. Understand that that's how I'm feeling. And then you can talk with me about, I get what you're saying, but honey, you're going to miss out on all the fun by worrying about the future. Let's deal with the fun now. And practice that with your learner. One of the big transitions is middle school. Because they go from that elementary school environment to middle school. How many of you enjoyed middle school? Oh, so many hands. Yeah. Nobody likes middle school. It's an uncomfortable time because not only, you're grown up, but you're not grown up. You're going through puberty and it's uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable time. Now, add to that the fact that you're a gifted kid. You just give yourself a double whammy. Middle school is hard because here's what happens in middle school. We have unrealistic expectations, and I so want to belong. I so want to fit in that sometimes I am willing to dummy myself down to fit in. You need to have a conversation with your daughters, with your sons. Do not ever dummy yourself down for anyone, because if that's what it takes to be their friend, you don't want to be their friend anyways. And when I have conversations with 6th grade girls and 7th grade girls, my conversation is this: don't you ever dummy yourself down for a boy. Never. And I talk with boys. I have 4 sons and 1 daughter. And I talk with boys about the fact that, you know what? There is nothing wrong with being a smart athlete. Colleges love you because you build their team GPA. And they advertise their team GPA. So there's nothing wrong with being a smart athlete. It's okay. You can do this. Perception is everything. Here's the hard part for some gifted kids. You see, they don't have necessarily a real strong filter. So if it comes in here, it comes out here. Oops. And so they do things like, "You're wrong!" And I say things to like them, okay, let's rethink that. But I'm not arguing that. I'm not arguing that they're incorrect. I'm saying that there's a better way to have shared that information. Let's work on the better way. Students get to the point where they can just look at me and I will get things like, okay, is it tone or words? Your words were fine. Your tone left a lot to be desired. Rewind that and try it again. And sometimes, I'll be honest with you, we rewind more than once. You're getting closer. Nope, try it again. And I have had students say, okay, could you say it so I can mimic what you're doing? Because I don't get it. They are not intending to be unkind. They are not intending to be rude. They are not intending to be mean. But the filter is lacking sometimes. And so that's how they come across. And I had a parent recently who sat with her son, and I laughed because her son is having some social issues. And I was talking with mom, and I said, I'm not questioning his intelligence. And she stopped me, and she said, hang on a minute. And she turned to her son, and she said, nobody cares how smart you are if you're a jerk. And I did everything I could to not laugh. But she's right. She's right. No, I can't say that. Okay? I can't say that. Moms, you can say that. Dads, you can say that. I can't. I can say that to my kids. But it's true. Perception is everything. You need to remember that. It isn't about how smart you are. It's how you're connecting with other people. And sometimes we have to teach that. And we have a lot of children who are really good at that negative self-talk. They're beating themselves up. I'm stupid. I can't do this. I used to have an affirmation jar on our table, and it had popsicle sticks in it with positive things. And we sat down at the table to have dinner, I know, I was one of those weird families. I made my kids sit at the table. And everybody pulled a stick. And you read the affirmation, and people at the table had to say something that proved that. Now, there were times where we struggled to come up with something, but we did. Negative self-talk works against you because that's your fixed mindset talking to you. You don't need that. They don't need that. And when that negative self-talk starts, I tell them, go write it down. Take that piece of paper, rip it up into as many little pieces as you can, and throw it away, because that's all it's good for. It's garbage. Throw it away. It's good for nothing. It's not going to help you. It's not good for anything. We have a duality in giftedness because we give mixed messages to kids, especially in middle school and in high school, because we say things like, it's okay to be smart, just don't be too smart. And it's okay, don't be a nerd or an egghead, and please don't be a teacher pleaser. But it's okay to be smart. Well, I don't know how to do both things because I am who I am. And we talk with kids about, it's great to get good grades. Don't talk about them. You might hurt somebody else's feelings. But then isn't it good to get good grades? We're telling kids two different messages. And we don't need to do that. It's okay to be smart. It's great to be smart. And you have a right to be proud of being intelligent. And if that makes me a nerd, so be it. It's not a negative word. I'm smart. And I'm proud of being smart. And that's okay. And I get good grades. And I'm proud of the fact that I get good grades because I work for them. Because if I'm in the right learning environment, I'm being challenged. And I'm pushing myself to get the good grades. And I have a right to be proud of them. And I have a right to let the world know that, hey, I'm smart and I get good grades. Praise the process, not the product that they finish with. Think about the effort that went into it. And talk with your kids about the difference between best effort and appropriate effort. Because here's the problem. We can't give our best effort at everything we do. It's not possible. And it's one reason why some of your children are struggling to get things done, because they're trying to give their best effort all the time. Well, you don't need your best effort all the time. Do you give your best effort grocery shopping? I don't. I get in, I get out. We can't give our best effort all the time. It's not possible. We can't do it. I need to learn what appropriate effort is needed. This is a worksheet. It requires this level of effort. This is my SAT test. It requires this level of effort. And I know for some of us as adults, we struggle with that, knowing how much effort is enough. But helping gifted kids understand that it doesn't have to be your best effort every single time. Everything you do doesn't have to be your best effort. Some things, yes. But learning to balance the difference between, I give my best effort on this, and I give an appropriate level of effort to this task, so that I can balance them. Because otherwise, I'm going to run out of time. I can't get it all done. Understand the difference between a put down or a positive. Sometimes things get said, and we didn't mean them that way, but to the ears of your learner, that's how they came across. We have to learn to change our words. We have to learn to adjust what we're saying, because we didn't mean it that way. But if that's what I heard, that's what I heard. And perception is everything. Please understand, your child is gifted 24/7. All day long, all night long. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. They're tired. They're curious. They want to take risks. They're developmentally asynchronous. They're gifted. And it's awesome. But it's also challenging. I heard a mom who wrote this, and she said, raising a gifted child is like living in a theme park, full of thrill rides. Sometimes you smile, sometimes you gasp, sometimes you scream, sometimes you laugh, sometimes you gaze in wonder and astonishment, and sometimes you are frozen in your seat. Sometimes you are proud, and sometimes that ride is so nerve-wracking that you can't do anything but cry. But I can tell you right now, don't ever miss the ride. Because it's awesome. It's fun. Don't miss that opportunity. All right. We have about 10 minutes. I can answer questions. I can't answer questions specific to your child. We will turn off the live stream only because we don't live